everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. Today I'm going to be painting Fezzik the Giant from The Princess Bride, or Andre the Giant from the wrestling world, if you know him from there. This was one of the models that I got in my model box subscription this month, February, last month now, and I just thought I'd paint it ahead of, they have a competition every month, and I thought I'd get this tutorial in nice and early, and if you are uncertain about entering the competition, you can at least copy this, hopefully, and enter using the same model, try and get the same standard, try and beat me, and just a little bit of fun there. And I also get to paint a cool model from The Princess Bride. So I'll leave some information about the model in the description below, as well as the paint list if you need that. It is coming up on your screen, but that'll also be below. I'll leave where you can get the models from and the information with the model box. I do an unboxing every month currently, so by all means check those out if you've not looked at those yet. Last month, February's Tales one was exceptionally good because it had the Princess Bride models in. Anyway, it's been painting in the background. We're on to tan now. That's for his boots. We used somber grey for his trousers, and it was Stonewall grey for his shirt. And I did his hands and his face in that as well, and his hair, because these are all Vallejo's game colour paints, which allow you to use them as a primer and a base colour. So that's why I was using Vallejo's so far, because I didn't prime this. So this is doing the work of both. Then I'm going to switch to Army Painter's Survivor Skin. That's my favourite flesh tone that I have currently. I'm going to paint in his hands, his neck, and his face using that colour. Using the detail brush here. I'm going to take my time. This is for a competition, so I'm going to take a little bit more care than I normally do, and just make sure I use a small brush and just get the paint exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to use Watercolours Black. That was a paint that came in Model Box in January, so just thought while I'm painting a Model Box competition entry, I'll use some Model Box paints. Any black would do for this. This is quite a watery black, although it's the opaque one. I do find it quite watery, and it's quite good. That flows very, very nicely, very easily. It's not as thick as I'd like for when I'm painting the base, but for this it's absolutely perfect. I'm also going to be doing his hair and his huge eyebrows. He's also got some sideburns to cover there. Just still using that detail brush from the Army Painter's detail brush, and just taking my time filling in his sort of like an afro, but it's just curly hair, isn't it? He's just got curly hair. That is the term you should refer to this as. I found this model's really interesting. Not only was there quite a few comments in the unboxing of this model, Patreon, we've been talking about it as well. There's quite a lot of want to see some of these Princess Bride models painted, so I'm pretty stoked at it. It's not just me who's a massive, well, I wouldn't say I'm massive, not just me who's a Princess Bride fan though, nostalgia and all. That was bright gold just on his belt buckle. Flesh wash is next. So because this is for a competition, because this is for people are going to be judging my painting ability, I'm going to be using washes that are very, very light, very close to the colours that I'm painting on top of. So flesh wash for the flesh. Now I normally do that, but I'm just setting the scene for my next choices over what colours. I want this model to look really good, sort of up close and personal, as opposed to on like a tabletop game where I might like a little higher contrast. So here I'm using light tone. It's not very far off that tan colour anyway, so I'm just darkening it down a little bit in those recesses. I am going to use a dark shade for his trousers, because his trousers are sort of, in the movie, they're blue and grey striped, but I'm not going to be able to achieve those grey stripes, so I just thought I'd darken it down as much as I could using the black shade. And then I'm going to mix that with 50% water and just make a lighter, runnier version for his shirt. I just wanted a light grey shade really, so a very watered down black one's going to achieve that. And as I mentioned, it's just to keep the contrast a bit lower, make this look really nice in a sort of picture and up close and personal, but because I'm not going to be playing it in a game, well, hopefully Austin will make me some cards for this so I can play it in Zombicide. I'm going to use Benson next. So you get Benson out of your paint box, and you get him to use some black and paint in 2 eye sockets. He's then going to use white primer to paint in 2 eyeballs on top of that. He's still only using the detail brush. He doesn't even go down to the insane detail. He's got very, very good eyeball control. Next, get back out that black. Again, these are watercolours, as I mentioned, from the model box in January. I'm quite liking them. I don't like it for doing the base because it's not thick enough in my opinion. I prefer my dead black by the Army Painter, but for that I think it's absolutely spot on. So that's Benson done, and then I come back and I've just got tan out, so I'm just going to start bringing up those boots back to the base colour. Again, still using my detail brush and just applying very watered down coats to all the raised parts. So that's all those folds in the boot, as well as don't know what you call that, the top part that's folded over. So I'm trying to get the top edge of that and the bottom edge of that. Any folds, the sort of toe part with a point, so I'm getting that nice and highlighted as well. I'll probably build up those layers off camera as well, just a couple more, because this is so thin, really just building up slightly a bit at a time. And then I'm going to mix in some bone white, about 50-50, just making a slightly lighter tan, and then I'm going to apply a much thinner coat of this, well, a thin coat and a thin line of this on top of all those areas I just did there, to bring a point to the highlight. On the grey from before, somber grey, I'm going to highlight this just with somber grey again. So I'm going to just go through, and there's some big chunky folds on his trousers here. So I'm just leaving that survivor shader in all those big recesses as well. So this bit's going to be quite high contrast. But as I mentioned in the, not the artwork, in the still from the movie, he's actually wearing sort of grey and blue trousers. So I'm trying to sort of do that, but cheating a bit, because I didn't want to paint in the stripes across all these folds. I think it'd be difficult to make it look realistic. If you want to beat me in the competition, I suggest you give that a go. That is definitely going to beat me in my opinion. I'm going to mix in some bone white there and just do the same technique and apply a thinner stroke to all the most raised areas. Stonewall grey back out again. I'm going to go back over that shirt slowly and very, very carefully, catching all of the edges of his shirt. So he's got cuffs, he's got a collar, he's got the bit where it's not tucked in at the bottom. He should have tucked his shirt in. What a scruffy giant this was. But also all those folds that you can see, being quite generous with this coat. There's a lot of bits that would just be catching the light, like his shoulders there, his bottom as well. All these areas that are folded, that would also be catching the light. So it's quite a lot to paint back in here. Buttons as well. He's got same coloured buttons as his shirt, so make sure you catch those. I think that's a bit of a shame they weren't gold buttons, but I like to stick to as realistic as I could, so I kept them the same colour as the shirt as they were in the movie. Necromancer Cloak next, dark grey by Army Painter, and this is going to be to highlight up the blacks. So I painted along the top of his belt there. Moving on to his eyebrows, a nice coat on that, and then I'm sort of kind of dry brushing it across his curls in his hair and just trying to catch the top part of all of those, leaving the black in the recesses. Then I'm going to mix in some bone white, as I've done with the other colours, about 50-50, and then I'm going to just do the same, a thinner line on the edge of his belt and just a bit on the top of his head. Tans back out again, and this is now to paint in his lips. I just wanted them a little bit darker, a little bit more realistic, like a real face would be, so a little bit of tan on his top and bottom lip there. Then I'm going to go on to highlighting up his skin, and I'm going to be using Survivor Skin, the same colours I used in the base. I'm just going to paint back in that base colour on all the, well, basically on all the skin actually. I just wanted to leave the recesses with the shade tone in, so I'm painting all of his fingers back in, and I'm just leaving the recesses, so the gaps between his fingers, I'm leaving the shade in there. And then on his face, I'm painting his brow, his cheeks, his nose, his chin as well, and the little bit of neck that you can see at the bottom. And then I'm going to mix in bone white again, about 50-50, just lightening this up, and then I'm going to apply quite a lot of water to this as well. And I'm going to go through and touch it on sort of his knuckles, the tip of his nose, his chin, and his cheekbones as well. I'm going to use bone white neat, and that is just to paint in some fingernails. He's got a few fingernails that you could see, so I'm just using my insane detail brush and just dabbing a little bit in. And that's him completely finished. That did not take a lot of time. He's very, very simple, to be honest. He's only, what is that, 5 colours? But I think I took the time and made the effort to make him still look really good. I'm really proud of that. So, because I thought he was quite simple, and because I wanted to use some more things that you got in February's model box subscription, these mushrooms came in that box. So I thought, let's jazz up the base. I don't often do that, but it is for a competition. You know, I might semi want to win it, so I might semi make the effort, and also just wanted to showcase some more of the stuff that you can get. So I'm painting up the mushrooms, and I started with bone white for the stems. So I've just picked 2. I'm just going to attach 2 to the base. So I did two of them so far, and then Gory Red for the head of the mushroom. Then I'm going to use bone white, and I'm just going to dot some of those speckles that you get on top of these. These are the like toad mushrooms. And I'm just varying the thickness of those dots. Some are thick, some are thin, just making it look a little bit random. Then after that, I'm just going to darken it all down with a light tone by the Army Painter. Just make it look a little bit more realistic with some shadows. I didn't mention at any point, this is the first ever metal miniature I've ever painted, and it's fine. Like, I don't really see any difference to the plastic ones, other than I needed to do slightly more coats. I think sometimes I could see some of the metal like glistening through, which made it look a little bit sparkly, which was a little bit weird. But other than that, I guess I had to attach the model to the base, which I'd not done, and the super glue and the metal and the plastic didn't take as quickly as normal. Ended up super gluing Fezzik to my desk, which was a little bit upsetting. After I've painted up those mushrooms, I've taken the base, I'm just showing you now, just cut out some cardboard. That's to fill in the gaps that just run between the model and the hole you glue him into. So after that, taken again, I'm just doing this off camera. I'm just using super glued down some cardboard, and then super glued the bottom of that mushroom. I filed it down nice and flat. I snipped it off of the base. Well, I just twisted it off of the base thing that it came in, and then filed it down with a file, and then just a little bit of super glue and held it in place for 30 seconds, and it's taken beautifully well. Next, I'm going to jazz up the base a little bit more, and this was an idea I had. I didn't have any flock. I wanted to make the base look like it was dirty with dirt, soil, and then I was going to add some grass on top, just make him look like he was stood in a field. But I don't have any flock, and I was lazy and I couldn't be able to buy any, so I thought, I'll just make some. A little bit of glue. I've got that artificial snow from the Hobbycraft that I'd used previously, so I've taken some PVA glue, just school glue, white glue. I'm going to use about a third of the glue, a third of that fake artificial snow, and then a third of Vallejo's earth colour. And then I'm going to mix that together with quite a lot of water. You can just see me add a load of water here. Mix that all together. And I was just trying to create my own flock, my own dirt-looking base, which I could then put some grass on top of. So I'm using an old brush here. Make sure you don't use one of your favourite brushes. This is just a very, very cheap brush I don't care very much about. I'm going to mix those together, give them a jolly good mix. And then once that's about right, get the consistency you want, I'm very, very carefully going to be painting that onto his base. I'm going to be sort of scooping it up. I think there's probably a better tool for this. Let me know in the comments below if you know what tool I can be using for this. This was quite difficult to do. I did enough on camera so you could see what I was doing, but then off of camera, I really spent quite a little bit of time picking up those snowflakes, that dirt, and just making sure I could get an even coverage, make it look like he was stood on soil. And then that's after it's dried. And I thought at this point, it's kind of what I was looking for. It's not perfect, but I was like, hang on a minute, that looks quite a lot like leaves in a forest, which is even better. So then at this point, I didn't know until now, I was going to try and paint it like that still from the movie at the beginning where they stood in a forest with autumn leaves all over the floor. So I've taken Parasite Brown, my dry brush. I'm going to dry brush all over the top of all of that stuck on snow. And then going to take Riser Rust, that's by Citadel. That's a dry brushing paint to begin with, so it was just a bright orange that's really good at dry brushing. And then apply that slightly less hard, I guess. There was less on the brush and I was applying less pressure, so less of it took to it. And then I'm going to do the same with Sun Yellow by Vallejo. Just apply a very light stroke, a very thin amount to the top. And that's going to try and make that sort of golden brown leaf formation that you see in the still and in autumn. And that's Fezzik, Andre the Giant, completely finished. I think it was one of the simplest models that I've painted, so I tried to jazz it up with an interesting base. I think it's actually turned out to be one of the best things I've ever painted. I'm really, really chuffed with myself. I think that's come out beautifully. And hopefully this is a nice tutorial that you'll be able to follow along with. You can paint the model yourself, or even better, you can enter the competition. Let me know in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and let me know if you're going to enter the competition, because obviously I'm quite keen to make these every month, and it's fantastic news if people are actually following along with this and taking on the challenge to beat me in it. Thank you all very much for watching.